This panel is the death of text ads. It's somewhat of an intentionally hyperbolic title because I don't think text ads are going away anytime soon, but we've certainly seen a lot of changes in the search results, the paid search results, where more and more we're seeing little things that look like images and product feeds and whatnot. So we have a great panel to talk about all the things that Google and other search engines are doing to go beyond just your standard traditional text ad, traditional as in like 2006. So let's start first with some introductions of the panel. And Kevin asked for brevity, so I think, Kevin, you're going to do yours in a haiku. Is that right?
No, not at all.
No? Okay. Why don't we start with you, Michael, and then go down the line.
Hi, I'm Michael Griffin. I'm the founder of Adlucent, and we do retail paid search technology.
Chris Knoch, Vice President of Strategic Solutions for IgnitionOne. And my haiku is hippopotamus, run, run, hippopotamus, hippopotamus.
Kevin Lee, founder and CEO of Didit. I have no haiku, but I guess I'm a business schizophrenic because over 16 years Didit's evolved into lots of different things. So some of us think of us as an agency, some of us think of us as a technology provider. They're both true, so I guess we're schizophrenic.
Hi, I'm Dave Zinman, CEO of Infolinks. We build a platform for publishers to monetize non-traditional ad space.
Hi, I'm the special guest star, Nina, from Petco, Digital Marketing Manager. And I would like to preface everything with, I really love Google, so please don't dock me for anything I say up here.
We told Nina in advance that when she said good things, Google would increase her quality score. So.
Yeah, I'm really going for it.
Yeah.
Dave got hammered and told us that they do that last night.
You know, if Google changed quality score because of what I wrote, I would get hammered with my quality score. So let's start out. I thought we'd just start with some table stakes and just talk about some of the different non-sort of traditional text units that are currently available on Google and on other channels. And maybe we'll just start. I'm just going to sort of randomly call people out. Maybe we'll start with Kevin because, Kevin, you just acquired Inceptor and you're doing a lot with product listings. So maybe you could just describe, so everyone's on the same page, what product listings are on Google.
Well, I don't think there's anybody here who hasn't experienced PLAs from both from a consumer perspective. You may not be in a retail business, so you may not need to think about them as an advertiser. But you know, one of the catalysts for us acquiring Inceptor up in Waltham, Massachusetts, was that a big chunk of their business was feed management and PLAs, and we saw some data that indicated that the search engines are increasingly going to go to sort of XML, nice structured data, as ways to inform their ad units, right? And that PLAs really just scratch the surface of that, and that additional intellectual property and additional expertise was going to really make our jobs a lot easier as a combined technology provider / agency. And this holiday season really has sort of proven out that when it makes sense for both the consumer and the advertiser, you can take a pretty big chunk of real estate and completely swap it out from sort of old versus new. So we just I think we've really just scratched the surface on how things that look like PLAs will manifest themselves into the SERP. One thing that occurred to me just on the flight here was how different is, what we see in a PLA ad format from what we see when we engage in a search at a major retailer like Amazon. The only difference is the buy it now or add to cart button is not there, right? So how much more coding is it going to take Google to just float that little yellow or orange or whatever color button they want right there into the PLA ads?
Google checkout?
Exactly. I mean, it's like the flower is there already. They just haven't put it in the bouquet, right? So,
that might count as your haiku.
So I don't want to go on too long, but just, travel, financial services, lots of other industries have structured data. The rate you pay on CDs, the cost of a flight to San Diego. Imagine what would happen if that information was flushed right into the SERP and made transactional right in the SERP, and how that would change all of our jobs.
I mean, I'll add to that. You got to think Google is thinking about that, but I warn them, and I've warned them that kind of disintermediation with retailers is going to be dangerous. What retailing is about is not just transactions, but it's about a relationship. It's about merchandising. It's about showing products in a different way. And so if Google does that, if they go there, I think they're disintermediating retailers in that relationship. And really that's where the value is in that long-term relationship. Conversion rates for repeat buyers are much, much higher than new customers. And so that's the retailer's job of trying to foster that kind of relationship. So I think it would be a dangerous move, and I don't think it's the best move, honestly, for the online consumer in terms of an experience for them.
I don't know about that, what you just said, because I've been watching what Amazon has been doing with their own like product lines, their white labeled stuff. I watched it. I'm kind of like an audiophile. I love like AV equipment, video games, and stuff like that. And it used to be that cables were very, very expensive. And then Amazon started doing HDMI cables for like $2. They have like destroyed the marketplace. And why? Because when I go to Amazon, I don't search. Sometimes I might filter by brand, but that's off to the left-hand side. I usually search by some form of price and customer review. And if it matches the description of what I'm looking for, has really good reviews, and is relatively cheap, I'm buying that. And I think what you're saying, though, about retailers, though, is that is a fundamental threat to their business model, because it is a disintermediary kind of move for them. I mean, Nina, do you guys think about that sort of stuff, like the stuff that Kevin's talking about when you're thinking about how Google is trying to move to the front of the line, and aggregators like Amazon and everything like that, how they're affecting retail? How do you think about that?
I'm going to have to agree with Michael. From our standpoint, we do see Amazon as a competitor, and having the product ads available on Amazon, why would we want to do that? They can get access to what works for us and then go after customers directly. It just doesn't make sense. I think Google staying out of that and not making it a direct is a good play. Again, it is about customer relationship. If they have to deal with their customers, they have to then also kind of build up their CRM team as well. We're talking, how are they going to handle all the complaints? If you're going to be a trusted store member, they have this rigorous standard, but for a huge retailer like Petco or any other huge retailer, that's a really massive amount of resources that have to go into that, and to be able to do that and be able to do that well, I think it's just I think it's just a really good business decision on Google's part not to get into it.
It reminds me of how hard it used to be to find what you're bringing up is how hard it used to be to find the contact us page of Amazon, if anybody remembers that.
I think, though, the prism that this being discussed in is slightly askew, because at the end of the day, what the search engine needs to think about is the consumer. And one of the big themes I think we could talk about in terms of the death of text ads is the importance of task completion, right? So Bing put a big stake in the ground saying that task completion and being the decision engine is going to differentiate the search engine. And actually, one of the examples I have later, David, when you're ready, is on Yahoo actually already doing this. So we can show it live if the demo gods allow. But the point is that task completion for the consumer has a lot of value. So if the consumer can get through less clicks to get what they want, there's a lot of value there. And yes, it may be tough for retailers to adapt to an environment where Google takes on more of that process. But the nature of digital has been that industries have had a tough time evolving as consumer needs have changed online. So I think we need just the prism of what's the best thing for the consumer is not clear, but giving the consumer the ability to complete a task more quickly is pretty compelling. So do you want me to?
Yeah, well,
I could do an example if you want, or we could wait.
Well, we have the Yahoo on screen. Why don't we just as another thing to talk about beyond PLAs? Why don't you talk about the Inatco Yahoo partnership?
Yeah, this is just an example. This is just an example of task completion online, and this is big kudos to Yahoo, my former employer, who it was very innovative in thinking about how do we change the search experience and what does that mean in terms of, you know, the testing that went into deciding whether this is better for consumers and more engaged. It's very impressive work, and ultimately it was Marissa that greenlighted this. So, so just kudos to the company for doing it. But if you're on Yahoo, and we can do, let's see, a search for Capella University. You'll see, so this is a branded term, right? And if you scroll down just a little bit, right there, stop. So you see where it says in gray, ad from Capella University. So this is a lead capture form. This is appearing right on the SERP. So this
is paid too, just
this is
clear.
paid, yeah. It's in the organic section.
Might
of
say
the
paid
page.
inclusion even, you could even say.
Yeah, okay, fine. If you okay, fine. But I think for the consumer, there's task completion going on here. So the consumer could click through to Capella. They could click through to an aggregator, become a lead somewhere down the line with extra clicks, or they can just do it right here. And you know, for Yahoo to make the decision to do this, it's saying that they must have, without sharing any data, they must have done a lot of analysis to understand the impact on consumers and the choice and whether this is useful for consumers or not.
That's like the most innovative thing I've seen Yahoo ever do in like 5 years.
He had to leave Yahoo to be that innovative, by the way.
Yeah.
Hey, no, it was, honestly, if Yahoo was being the company that wasn't innovating, none of this would have happened. So at any rate, the example is task completion. Again, I'm like stressing the theme of what is best for the consumer. We don't know, but through testing, you know, Yahoo and Google and Bing and all those guys are going to figure out what consumers want to do, what increases the engagement, what increases users' propensity to come back and use the search engine, and they're not going to do something that's going to decrease that, I can guarantee you.
And one question I'd sort of put forth to all of you, right, is given the amount of market control that the search engines as a whole have over the consumers who love them, right? They love their search engines. They love the user experiences that they're getting overall, right? If they were to move into a buy it now process, which either shunted you directly into the shopping cart and allowed you to continue the transaction on the website, which is you can do with essentially CGI calls, and there could be a standard around that, or transact entirely at the SERP. You know, how many of you who are retailers or brands for that matter have the intestinal fortitude to say no, right? Because in PLAs, the list of major internet retailer, top 500 retailers that are saying no to Google PLAs is very small, right? Because you know, when you're in a position to control the user and control the user's path, it gives you a tremendous amount of market control. So I'm not saying that you can opt out of it, right? It's your choice.
Well, it's almost like, yes, you want the brand experience of the retailer, but the conversion, if conversions are king to you, and especially search marketers, we seem very beholden to them. One of the first things you learn if you're doing landing page or checkout process type of conversion rate optimization is as few pages as possible, as few clicks as possible. So if I'm a retailer and I have the ability to just go click buy or click it's in my cart, I can check out immediately. That's kind of disruptive or very disruptive, however your opinion falls.
But it's a pretty short-term perspective on it. I mean, in the long term, what retailers really need to be focusing on is that lifetime value and that the value of that customer experience. And so if they're not focusing on that, if they're just transactionally focused, they'll gain short-term gains from working with Amazon or working with Google. But in the long run, is it going to be the best thing for their business? I think really smart retailers like Zappos, like Amazon, are really looking at the lifetime value of their customers and focusing on that. And I think that's really key. And I think those smart retailers are the ones that are going to survive. The ones that are just trying to get the quick wins in the short term are going to have a harder time in the future.
Yeah, but they're beginning the customer experience. I mean, to Nina's point, though, they're not taking over the CRM type of like post-sale type process at that point. And if you still get the product delivered and hopefully as expected, maybe you find other avenues of following them around. I mean,
but is that a good experience for the user? If there's a problem, who does the user now go to? They're going to go to Google, and then Google's just going to go, well, you need to talk to whoever you bought it from. that becomes a really poor experience because you just took out the customer relationship aspect of it.
The Google experience in paid advertising, very simply stated, is cost per click, maximum cost per click times click-through rate. And so the notion there would be that the click-through rate is solving for the user experience, because if consumers click on something, that means they must like it. So I guess my question would be, I think, Michael, you were mentioning earlier that you thought it was a bad experience because you were taking away the retailer's ability to sort of be top of funnel on search. But when we see things like PLAs that appear to be working, shouldn't we just should we assume that this is good for retailers or consumers because it's performing better, or is that a bad assumption?
I mean, I think PLAs are great for retailers. They're a direct mechanism to their websites. We're seeing CTRs about 88% higher than other non-brand text ads. And so, and that directly correlates to revenue gains. And so it's a big deal for retailers. It's a great way to get people into their site. It's a great way to actually start to merchandise a little bit on Google, start to show your images, start to merchandise a little bit there and bring them in. So at least with PLAs, I think it's a great experience for consumers and retailers. It's a win-win. I think it's a great solution.
I think the merchandising point is really interesting because best practices in PLA optimization are being written as we speak, right? And one thing that a lot of retailers are completely ignoring is image diversity, right? Yeah. Because this is your opportunity to diversify your image from all the other images. Certainly at the SKU level, the images are identical, and Google often just picks one of them because the camera body for a Nikon D800 is the same for everybody, right? So they don't even show the typical 8-pack. And in the case of where it's a cashmere sweater search, that image diversity and testing, do I show that red cashmere sweater on a model, or do I just show the red cashmere sweater on a white background? Because my standard product shot is white background, right? But because Google's going to solve for quality score, and quality score's biggest component is predicted click-through rate, I may be able to buy that click a lot less expensively or achieve a higher position or more frequent inclusion in PLA as a result of image optimization or price optimization, right? I'm now moving two levers that have a lot of positions, price of my product and price of my bid in the XML feed, and then I have another image option, which you could obviously throw a tremendous diversity of image product shots in there if you so choose. And the level of optimization going on there right now is really just the tip of the iceberg.
I think someone said, this is not my quote, but someone said, referring to Facebook image testing, that unfettered A/B image testing on Facebook inevitably leads to porn. Which
that sounds like Marty would have said that, but maybe
I was going to say Rob, actually.
Yeah, but that's a different environment. I mean, my intent on Facebook is to socialize, and you socialize with people that you find attractive. Your eyes are drawn to them. When I'm on Google or I'm trying to do some intent of action, it could be a little bit different. And I think to Kevin's point, it's you have to match. One of the next boundary that some of us are already working on is with PLAs is that matching, either through semantic matching or something that will make sure that the more granular long-term keywords are matching up with what the person is looking for, so that there is no disconnect. And a lot of that, you need to be working with somebody that has feed optimization capabilities, semantic matching capabilities. Those are the things you need to be asking about when you're talking about PLAs.
I think that's a great point. I mean, Google represents PLAs as a fairly automated, easy solution, but it's not. And they say it's a keywordless solution. It's not. The keywords are in your feeds. And so if you're not doing feed optimization and optimizing the fields in your keys based upon consumer intent, then you're missing a wide audience. And in fact, if you really start to do that, they're a ton of work, but the benefits are huge. So that's going to be a continued focus area of online retailers in the future.
Has anyone considered schema.org or Open Graph, and could that be a potential displacement for a product feed in the future? Maybe that's a different topic. Let's change topics from PLAs, and maybe I'll throw this over to Nina for starters, because Petco has an online presence and also retail locations. So I assume that you do a lot of stuff with site extensions. And what's your perspective on site extensions, specifically when you're thinking about maybe location extensions versus product extensions?
Well, there are even more extensions than
And
that,
more.
actually. There's there's a lot of flowers, but maybe I want a corsage. I don't know. It really depends on the strategy of the online strategy that I have for my different lines of business. So for e-com, I want that sell directly online. If I'm trying to support my retail stores, I want to drive them into the stores. So I'm going to have a location extensions. I am not of the train of thought that I put every extension out there. I can't control which extensions are going to show at what time. Google can't even control that. So I'm going to pick out the ones that are most relevant to me and that are going to help me deliver my goals. So for the retail support, when you were asking about that, I do focus a lot on locations and extensions. For my e-com, I'm more about getting that CPA. So I'm going to focus more on things that will be able to help me push my products. I do a lot of PLA. I did a lot of product extensions in the past, but I feel like that's kind of dropping off. Site links is getting a little bit more interesting. They keep changing the rules on what you can and can't do on site links. So that's been quite a challenge to stay on top of that as well, and seeing what's relevant for the different types of groupings that you have. So again, a lot of extensions, pick the ones that are best for you. I'm now testing out Google offers, not doing it on Petco, I'm doing it on Pooch hotels. And I've recently started seeing measurement on that. There was no visibility into people who could print or who were putting it into their wallets until about a couple of weeks ago. So it's been quite interesting to see what Google can offer and how it works, and see if it actually works for your product. I can't use Google offers for the Petco brand because I can't control that offer getting viral. There's just a lot of implications, and it's just trying to make sense of what makes sense for your business.
Like, number one request to Google for all these extensions and changes to the SERP and the text ad is, when you come to the advertiser who basically pays most of your bills right now, think of how they're going to track it. I don't know how many times I've come in and it's like, oh, we have this great new thing and you should do it now, and you're like, but how do I track it? How do I know it will work? Well, just try it,
You'll do reporting in 2 months.
Yeah, we'll do some manual reporting on the back end for you, but spend a bunch of money on it, and we're really confident. Other retailers are seeing really good results with this.
Tracking's so overrated.
Yeah.
One area, I've been really trying to think for this panel about, can we sort of predict? There's already this amazing site extension buildup that you see occur sometimes when advertisers opt into a lot of them at the same time. Especially now you got Google Social in there, and that makes it even bigger. And then you got local. You can get some pretty freaking big ads up there when you start to see the ad extension buildup. But I'm trying to sort of put myself in the search engine's shoes and think sort of what, given the sort of current ecosystem, what would I, what's my next cool extension, right? And actually the next extension, it may not happen, but maybe it will because it's getting tweeted. But I would not be surprised to see some form of card-linked offer or mobile payment platform linked offer that allows for sort of closed-loop tracking into the retail establishment. Initially at the merchant level, and then as POS systems allow for integration down to the SKU level. There are already a few startups that have been pretty heavily funded in the card-linked offer space. They take very different perspectives on how they're executing, but the technology is like right at the cusp of working at scale. And it breaks through that one of the big areas that, where to do a econometric test and really understand offline to offline conversion behavior, you need to really have a pretty big sized budget and be able to do some kind of longitudinal test or geographic split test and to see the difference. But with card-linked offers, you end up with a segment of the audience that's actually illustrating exactly what's happening. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some cool stuff come out. It may not be next year, but it may be the following year. But the opportunity there to grab incremental budget is pretty significant. So we may see something there.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. I mean, you see stats where online is influencing up to 75% of offline purchases, and still the vast majority of purchases are happening offline right now. And so if Google can start to close that gap and help retailers and other advertisers start to close that gap, that's a huge opportunity. If I were Google, I would be pouring a ton of money there and trying to win that battle, trying to win the mobile payments battle, because I think that'll help close the loop too.
Or Yahoo.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about Yahoo.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think if I could come up with how do you connect mobile, how do you deal with mobile searching, this is something I could see Google accomplishing. I'm in a store, and this happens all the time for retailers, and they start showrooming. The person's in the retail establishment, and they're searching for that product that they're right in front of. They're looking for reviews, and they're looking to see if they can get it at a better price. If I'm on an Android device and it's Google's platform, and through some type of permissioning that I give them permission to, they actually can alert the retailer right at that moment that I'm showrooming, and that retailer can in real time offer me 10% off to stay in the store, or bring an associate over to me, enhance my shopping experience for being a retailer. That's a compelling use of mobile, location, PLAs, all rolled up into one thing. But I quite frankly don't see anybody at Google just seems to be dropping this stuff out in little piecemeal things. And that's how I would challenge them to be thinking about this for retailers at the end of the day.
You don't think they've got the Minority Report and retinal scan patent already,
No, but
Well, actually, this raises an interesting point, and this may be the last discussion point, and then we'll open it up for questions. But maybe text ads, or the death of text ads, is being prematurely noted on desktop. But for mobile search, maybe the extensions, app extensions, call extensions. I don't know what you're going to call Chris's idea there. Combination of everything extensions. Maybe this is where text ads really will die, and some alternative experience will come about through mobile search. Thoughts?
I mean, I think any extensions on the mobile that actually help people transact on a mobile or to take action on the mobile will be successful. Call extensions have worked extraordinarily well. And if there are other extensions in the future that work really well that enable that, I think they'll be huge. That's ultimately the problem with the mobile, is it's hard to take action and do that. So if Google can bring those to market, I think there's a ton of opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, Dave talked earlier about how reducing, I think, or maybe several of us mentioned, reducing consumer friction, right, is really an enabler for the whole platform. And the lens that the engines view this through is that, right? Because in the end, if you lose the consumer, you lose your business. So yeah, they listen a little bit to what advertisers and their agencies have to say, but in the end, the consumer drives, consumer adoption and consumer satisfaction drive the bus.
One thing though that, if we talk about the death of text ads, theoretically could radically change the use of text ads is what's happening in display, in that the utility of a text ad is great because it's so you can customize it so much to exactly what the keyword is and the geography and all the data that's present. But what's happened over the last few years in display is that a lot of companies have built systems to do dynamic display creation. And now there are cases where you can have display ads that are as flexible and as tailored as a text ad can be. And so you'd have to ask yourself, if you look at, there are some small signs of this now, and this is obviously further off, but a display ad is infinitely more eye-catching than a text ad. And so if you could come up with a display ad that was tailored enough, it's not a big leap to imagine a search engine wanting to place that on the SERP. And the reason why it's not done today is probably more because of what people have become accustomed to in terms of the experience with search. But that's something that could change over time. And so if you could get a really useful display ad that was tailored as much as the text ad was, there's really there aren't very many limitations in terms of how much convergence could happen. And we see the convergence already. We're seeing it like if you're an AdSense publisher, you're seeing display ads or search ads depending upon what's monetizing better. And a lot of those display ads are very, very tailored to the user. The company that I'm in now, Infolinks, we're doing display ads against search targeting, and there's a lot of value in kind of marrying those two sets of capabilities. I wouldn't hazard a prediction as to when a search engine might actually implement this on a SERP, because that's obviously a big step. But the ecosystem for display is evolving very rapidly, and at some point, the efficiency level there is going to be compelling for search engines, and so I could definitely see that happening.
It seems like if there were dynamic retargeting ads on Google SERP results, that would be a sure sign of the zombie apocalypse.
Well, retargeting, see, there's where I disagree. Retargeting wouldn't be useful on the SERP because the person is they're looking for something right now, and you don't want to target what they were interested in last week. You want to target what they're interested in right now. So you don't need to bring the user data from what they did before, but you could tailor the ad specifically to what they're searching on, where they're located right now, all that contextual information that helps to make the text ad really effective.
And what we are pretty close to is the ability to RTB in the SERP, right? Real-time bidding in the SERP. Because if you think about retailers or lots of marketers, our willingness to pay to capture somebody's click is very often influenced by whether we've seen them before, do we have an existing relationship. That stuff can either be transmitted into a first-party Google cookie to in a hash, or it can be, they can allow for third-party ad calls to allow us to, in real time, decide exactly how valuable that specific query is from that specific anonymous cookie ID, of course, which would not be anonymous to the advertiser, but there are ways around it that are obviously need to be addressed. But just imagine RTB meets SERP, right? And how that changes almost everything. Still maybe with text link ads often, but often with extensions, et cetera. There's lots of things that will make your brain hurt if you really start to think
it's bid discrimination, like yet another sign of the apocalypse, some type of Google cookie matching to the SERP page.
That exists. RLSA, retargeting list for search ads.
Right. Yep.
I think it's out of beta. I hope I'm not.
but it's segment.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by, like, on a one-to-one basis, I can say that this is somebody who's a return customer. I've tagged them as a return customer with my first-party data. I want to pay double on a search result to get to the top of the list and bring them back to me.
Well, so I've heard this RTB for search mentioned by like 4 separate people in this conference, so it seems like a relevant topic, but I'll just posit this to you guys. The way I see it, there's now 5 levels of segmentation in search. Cookie level segmentation, which was RLSA, device segmentation, geographic segmentation, query segmentation, and time of day segmentation. So what does RTB have that those 5 things don't? And maybe I just don't understand RTB, but what else do you need to really sort of be able to effectually say, this user at this time on this device, on this query, I want to buy this?
Well, you can pass all that stuff into a matrix, but what's missing from that is your BI, right? You may have business intelligence as an advertiser on the back end, which you can put out into your edge server, right? Which will then allow you to further differentiate. So you can already do a tremendous amount of tuning using the targeting levers at your disposal that you went down. And as a matter of fact, I think one of the things we've been thinking about a lot at Didit is this idea of, can you, in the absence of some of that information, can you sometimes use some of that data as a proxy, right? So I don't know if the woman from La Quinta is still here, but she mentioned audience, right? Like, what's the missing ingredient in a lot of what we do is audience. But we find that as the resolution of Google's geo-targeting improves, that you now have a proxy for audience, because the people who live on the Upper East Side of New York City are very different than the people who live in East Harlem, right? And we've known that for many, many years, and we really can't do much about it, from the perspective of tuning campaigns when the resolution geographically is 20-mile radius. But as that starts to move down, all of a sudden it empowers us to be able to take advantage of that information and use audience as geography as a proxy for audience, which often in the standard creative brief is what came down from the CMO. You know, I want women aged 18 to 35, whatever it says, or a persona layered on top of that.
Yeah, that's all that, I mean, that's the stuff that that I can leverage right now. Like, we're doing Facebook exchange stuff, and we can leverage that into our retargeting and our bid discrimination on top of having an engagement score that we can discriminate between this is somebody who clicked on an ad and bounced versus somebody that clicked on an ad and consumed several pages of data for this product. So I can serve up more relevant information, and I know that that person is likely to be more engaged, and I could bid 2-3 times as much to get that person.
First party data is what.
Correct. First party data. Yeah.
Right. Again, but the SERP has got so much more valuable intent than whatever cookie data existed before. It can enhance what you provide on the SERP. The big barrier, though, to RTB on a SERP is just time, meaning that, you know, Google, Yahoo, and Bing are hyper focused on the milliseconds, right? And
I could do that. I could do that right now. If
Yeah.
Google were to come to me and say, I can tell you that I have somebody right now, give me a match to the first party data, I could say I've seen them 3 times before over the course of this day on very similar keywords, and I know they're shopping for it, and I'm going to pay like 10 times as much to shoot to the top of the list and make sure no other competitor sees it.
As long as you're not bidding in real time for it. If you can set it up in the matrix, if you will. If you can set it up ahead of time, then...
No, I'm bidding in real time for it. I can do that in milliseconds.
But the thing is, within the display ecosystem, 40 milliseconds is acceptable, right? I think his point is that in the SERP, 40 milliseconds is unacceptable.
You're adding,
right?
that's
So-
time you're adding to the delivery of the page. So if Google has to go ping somebody else and get a result and then serve an ad, that's out. That's out right there. But that doesn't mean that you can't get the value. In other words, you can set it up in the matrix. So I think that the idea of RTB is to be able to take whatever data sets you have and bring it to bear on the targeting, and there just needs to be another delivery method for it.
It's like NTB. It's like near time bidding,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you basically can adjust your matrix, but you don't have the real-time business intelligence. So we may be a while away before RTB hits the SERP, just because 40 milliseconds is unacceptable to the search engines right now, and that's their typical window for, you know, display, because they don't. You can render the rest of the page on a publisher's site and wait a few extra milliseconds for the ad to render, you know, while the whole exchange process occurs. You know, they're not probably willing to do that for a SERP yet.
So I think we have like 4 minutes left. So are there any questions from the audience? I see one. Is this a question about NTB and NFC and how that all makes you want to say OMG? No, it's Rob. Who's There's 2 microphones racing over to you.
Yeah.
First one.
Which Rob's faster?
Yeah.
Me. So I think the 6th dimension of the audience is actually one that's really important, and at least within our own network, our optimization strategy, since we work with so many different traffic sources and publishers, is that we'll start a campaign off on brand and top non-brand terms, view the performance across the entire network, and the discrepancies we see, even for the top performing keywords from one source to the next, has much more importance in pricing and bidding than even bidding from keyword to keyword to keyword. So I think the audience is really probably one of the most important driving factors in pricing over geo-targeting, day parting, and a lot of the other stuff you mentioned. So if Google was able to allow you to pull that data and use that in real time for bidding, I think that's probably one of the most important things. I don't know how some of you guys are accomplishing that with your current strategies, other than doing display and
You're referring to
retargeting.
first-party audience data or third-party audience data?
Either.
Does anyone want to comment on either of those? Maybe the third-party one is easier to answer because we were talking about Hitwise and all the other different opportunities to get third-party behavioral audience data.
I guess the only comment I would make is because a lot of the top search agencies have gotten into the exchange-based display business in the last few years, it's really informed our whole thinking, right? Because we've had the ability to pull levers with the exchanges that we don't have the ability to pull those levers in the SERP yet, right? And so it really just changes the way we think about auction-based media in general, right? And where it may end up going across any digital device, and the number of targeting levers that we have available at our disposal create a very large number of permutations once you reach critical mass on one of those levers, right? So, okay, do I want to treat iOS and Android differently, right? And Sid Shah talked about, well, you should certainly be doing that, that seems to index against income, right? Income is an audience variable, right? But you're using other targeting levers as a proxy for audience. And is it perfect? No. You could have, a billionaire using an Android device, right? Okay, so that one, but on average, it's all about shifting the averages in your favor. So and that's the way you yield optimize at the publisher level and the advertiser level. It's all about shifting the averages in your favor and cherry picking out, if possible, like the humans behind the clicks, right? They're not clicks, they're humans.
Like a good near-time bidding, if we'll use that as a phrase. Example would be I've worked with like the high-end retailers that on our platform, and they don't want to pay for something like Red Sweater, because they sell it's a $500 sweater, and they don't want to pay to link somebody to a $500 sweater when they know they're going to show up with Target and Walmart hawking a $20 sweater, right? But if they had audience data in front of that, and you could even say, like, if they're identified as somebody that's willing to pay that much, then bid higher, or even just put me in the mix. There's just so much stuff that we could be doing with SERPs in terms of audience targeting that we're not doing at all right now.
Yeah, and the data for like Google as an example is there. It's in AdX, and in fact, Google touts that 80% of the demand in AdX comes from AdSense anyway. So it's going to be shocking if someday we don't see those segments available for targeting when you're setting up your search program.
Can we just try to get one more question in? Sorry, Michael. Does anyone have another question, or should we just?
We answered everything.
All right. Well, maybe Michael will give you the last thought, and then I think it's roundtable time.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing based upon the limitations of technology and the lack of real-time bidding today is we're starting to look at the intent of new customers versus existing customers. And what we're seeing is not that we should, yes, you want to bid differently, but we're actually seeing them search on completely different things. So for one of our retailers, Free People, they were looking at obviously return on ad spend, and when we started to look at it based upon return on ad spend for new customers versus existing customers, it turned the entire table. And so it's really interesting. When you hook in with the CRM of the retailers and then start to look at what the different customer segments are searching for, you can target those customer segments even better. And I think we're just scratching the surface of what's possible there, even without the ability to do real-time bidding today.
All right. Well, I think it's a great discussion. I think maybe next Search Engine Strategies, we need to have a real-time bidding panel. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the roundtables.